नमो वीत्रागाय, नमो अरिहंताणम, नमो सिद्धाणम, नमो आयरियाणम, नमो वज्जायाणम, नमो लोए सव साहुणम, ऐसो पंच नमोकारो सवपावपणाशनो मंगलाणम च सव्यसिम पढ़मम हवै मंगलम। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमः शिवाय। Jai Satchidanand. Good morning everybody in America and in the West. This is the real-time relay of the Parayan that is ongoing. And this is the Parayan of Aptavani 4. Parayan means a detailed study of the words in here of the Gnani Purush Dadashri, whose Aptavanis, the major new scriptural texts for the new millennium, in the science of self-realization through the direct path of Akram Vignan, are now being read volume by volume. The current one for the Paryushan ceremony, Paryushan meaning gathering together with a deep spiritual intent of people. Especially this happens in a particular time in August-September of every year in India, and that is when intense study of the self, both small SCLF and S capital SCLF, is being done in the presence of spiritual masters. And in our case, in Akram Vignan, we have our current living Gnani, Pujya Deepak Bhai Desai, who has been spearheading the ongoing worldwide exposition of the science of Akram Vignan of Gnani Purush Dadashri in current times. And this is the Parayan study of Aptavani 4 up to pages 130 were covered in the last December. Now this is we are going to continue with Parayan of Aptavani 4 on page 131. There will be Gujarati readings by Mahatmas, those who have attained the self through the Gnan Vidhi of Gnani Purush Dadashri, and thousands have gathered here in Simandar city, just outside the youth city of Ahmedabad, India, in the western part of India, and they are all having their own books reading. While the Gujarati reading is going on, we will have the Gujarati pages that are being that have been translated in Aptavani 4, Aptavani 4.pdf, and this is available on the internet, dadashri.org/Aptavani, Aptavani, the letter 4.pdf, and we are in chapter 16, Relative Religion and Science and the Development of Relative Religion. So without further delay, let us commence now. These Parayan sessions for the 25th of August 2011 are in 4 sections: before the break and after the break in the morning, before and after the break in the evening. So let us all resolve to have the fullest attention to the words of the Gnani, and let us be in the Upayog, the state of the self, as we read the words, and let us all get derive the energy from our eternal self as we proceed into this magnificent Upayog, inner applied awareness of the self. Jai Satchidanand. So here we begin now. Jai Satchidanand, the awareness of eternal is bliss. I bow to the Absolute Self with deep obeisance and total sense of oneness, repeatedly. Jai Satchidanand, the awareness of the eternal is bliss. Now we have already finished 130 pages of Aptavani 3. Now we are going to start with page 131, and we will employ the scientific vision, and we will study it with the scientific vision. One can claim that I read 25 pages in 1 hour because I've got very good speed, but no, that is not what we want. In 1 hour, it is not important how much you have eaten, but it is more important how much of the food you have digested. In the same way, let us see how much of this Gnan and gets digested. That means what we have attained through the understanding of I am pure soul. This is Vyavasthit. All of that should come into the experience, into the result. And so to move from the U capital understanding to the E capital experience, this Vani, the speech of the Gnani Purush Dadashri, is there, and what he has experienced and seen in absolute knowledge, Keval Gnan, that is what he is giving to us in answers, and so we get the scope of seeing the same thing. What is it that he saw? What is it that he experienced? What is it that he is trying to communicate? Let us try to understand that. And let us and we might even go deeper into it with some subtlety. In Parayan we sometimes enter deep into it. There is a vision behind every word. In Masi and Mami, Masi being mother sister and Mami being father sister, but you see, if there is a slightest difference in the word, then the understanding changes, and therefore, so if you, instead of saying mother sister, if you meant father sister, two totally different human beings are involved. Somebody can say he went to Ajmer Gaya. Some Ajmer means, but he can say Aje Mari Gaya. Today he died. Ajmer, Aj Mar Gaya. So this is how it is. So the inflection, the tones of the words are so critical, and it is very. Please let us all keep that in our inner understanding that we do not have to employ this. Dada has said that we have to, because we need to know who is the giver. We have to understand that that we have to. If we know, we do not need to get rid of our illusory attachment. We need to know the one who has the illusory attachment. Know that it is Nada or Uve that is getting the illusory attachment, not you. If you try to take it out by the bucketful with the shovels, then you will become very, very tired, and it cannot be done. The discharge effects cannot be changed. You have to know that Katya and Gata has the moha, the illusory attachment. Marion has the illusory attachment, and how much illusory attachment is arising, how much it is decreasing. This is how we really need to know. We need to see the other person as the self, as capital, the flawless one, and he is the flawless one. And so we need to see we need to know the exact scripture of the Gnani Purush, which opens up the entire milestones from the beginning stages of self-realization to absolute self-realization. And so this is the path. Kevad Gnan is, but here in this life we need, from the indistinct experience of the self as capital to the distinct experience of the self. The Dadashri's speech is available to us for this in this life, and if we miss this particular target of U capital understanding as opposed to the small u understanding, then we will miss the target. And so we have to really focus on that internal understanding, that this is the kind of inner understanding that we need to have within us. So we need to continue to set the perpetual understanding that is related to the self, and not the understanding that is related to Jeff or Nada or Uva. So, and if the understanding is not working, then you have to apply the right switch. If there are 10 switches, 9 switches will not work, but the 10th switch, the exact switch, if you turn the right switch on, then everything will work. But so you don't need to jump around trying to say, hey, which switch it is. But the moment you flip the right switch in precision, everything And so if it does not come into the current contact, then because it was the result of the 50% misunderstanding of last life that is unfolding in this life, as this life misunderstandings are cleared with the new understanding, new capital understanding of this Gnan of this life, this will then, those layers will wash away, and therefore you should not be worried if the old understanding continues to prevail in this chart. So let us now start reading, please. So we are going to read now, and the readers have been assigned, so this is going to go into the reading part. Deepak, we're waiting for the reader to begin. Jai Sachidanand. Aptavani 4, volume 4, page 131, chapter 16, Relative Religion, Real Religion, Relative Religion and Science, the development of relative religion. Relative religion is not a natural religion, whereas real religion is natural or swabhavik. I think is so. It produces natural bliss when one realizes, who am I? Who runs all this? His illusory attachment will go away. Otherwise, the moha, the illusory attachment that this is my sister and this is my aunt, remains. His moha, even towards his aunt, does not go away, does it? When you get burnt, people will ask how you are, but there is no feelings in it. So then there is the relative religion. You can later on, there is much more. Relative means there is a mixture of everything. There is mind is needed, speech is needed, body is needed, and then other evidences are needed. So when you want to make rice, you need rice grains, etc. You need water, you need salt, you need butter, you need and then you need to time. You need 6:45. You need time. You need location. You need evidences. So relative religion is dependent on other things, whereas real religion is the religion of the self, which does not require any external evidences. And so for the real religion does not require any evidence of the non-self complex or this universe. In the relative religion is what is happening in the relative world, whereas in this Gnan, after the awakening in the Gnan Vidi, this begins. In the relative world, all you need to know is who am I and who is running all this. If you just know the answers to these two questions, then the illusory attachment goes away. That I am away. This illusion is there because I am over. But when this breaks, then the entire path of liberation opens up. Therefore, so this is the most critical key to break all the illusions, to find out who am I, why is this happening to me, why am I getting attracted. And that is where we have to separate and say, who is this happening to? Is this happening to Nada, or is this happening to me? Is this happening to Uwe, or is this happening to me? I am the pure soul, Nada is separate. I am the pure soul, Uwe is separate. Why is it happening today? That is this is because it is the causes of last life had happened, and when all the evidences get together in this life, it happens in front of me, and this is a nimit. Nimit is separate, the pure soul is separate, and as you know the entire science, then the discharge illusion will completely. The charge illusion has been shattered in the Gnanvidhi. Now the discharge moh, which is called the Charitra moh, will disappear through the setting of the Agnas. So all the relative religions of the world, all the religions we are reading have contradictions. A relative religion is like washing a garment. If you have to use soap to wash a garment, but then the soap leaves behind its residue, so then you add little tinopal, a whitening agent, to get rid of the soap residue, but the tinopal leaves its residue behind. And similarly, these worldly gurus remove your dirt, leaving behind their dirt on you. All the relative religions remove dirt with dirt. This now we have retained, says Deepak Bhai, the real religion. The relative spiritual masters tell you to do this, chant this much, chant this, these mantras, etc. But so, in other words, he moves you away from negative company and negative things towards positive things. And so wherever there is any need for doership, that is all relative to relative religion, and it creates its own veil. You think that you're washing a white shirt with soap, but the soap does its leave its chemicals and its own dirt on the garment. And so one spiritual master washes away a little bit of dirt, and then he pushes you towards another one, and that next spiritual master washes more dirt, etc. And that is the karmic path, the step-by-step path of rising higher in relative religion and higher towards the self. But the self is not attained. But because there is ignorance, there is also the intoxication of the ego too, because I am getting better. Whereas we attained the Shuddha Gnani, the pure Gnani, and therefore because Dada was the Shuddha Gnani, we also attained the Shuddha, the pure soul, and the pure Gnan. And so it is at the level of the I am pure soul, Ich bin reine Seele, that the real self world begins, the self as capital world begins. One has not heard, known, or even had faith in the knowledge of the Vitarags. Your work would have been done if you had. Vitarag Gnan cannot be attained without a Vitaragi Purush. Paroksh worship, indirect worship where ignorance of the self prevails, gives rise to worldly life. You bind merit karma there. Worldly life appears sweet, so one sinks deeper into it. Instead, the bitter evidences are better. So Vitarag Vani, says Deepak Bhai, Vitarag speech, the absolutely detached speech, where there is no owner of the speech at all. When you listen to this, when you meet the Vitarag Purush, the Vitarag one, the one who is absolutely free, then he will make you free from the bondages of the world. Whereas the other worldly gurus, they just make you climb step by step, from the negative to the positive, from the inauspicious to the auspicious. Until you meet the Gnani Purush, until you do not have the inner devotion towards the awakened S capital self, until then you have to rely on an external worldly spiritual master. Until you meet a Gnani Purush, there is no recourse but to meet somebody who can make you move into a better direction from a negative direction. And so the relative dharmas, the relative worldly religions are essentially, they are teaching you that only. And so in the worldly life, bitter is good. However, but when the bitter experiences happen, if you do not have self-knowledge, then there is rag, dvesh, attachment, and aversion, and therefore you can sink deeper into sink deeper and away from spirituality. But if you have the exact the right understanding that when the bitter experiences unfold in life, then when you can remain in the self, and therefore you can really move towards the S capital self and away from that which is bitter. So relative religions reading tell you to do good deeds. Even if what you do is through the ego, it is good, because the fruit of it is merit karma or punyai. You reap what you sow. Sow wheat and you get wheat. Sow millet and you get millet. Therefore, sow what is convenient for you. You have to remove bad thoughts. Instead, what one does is that he sows good seeds, but he at the same time sows seeds of jujube trees, bad deeds too. So now all the jujube trees have sprouted everywhere. Relative is a mixture and the real is independent and pure. Where changes happen, it is of the relative. Relative is that in which adulteration has happened, and the real is pure, Shuddha. Whichever way you slice the relative, you will be able to find. Will you be able to find any slice of the real in it? The Vitarags have said that there is a lot more behind what you are currently doing. Nevertheless, these are paths, and people will gradually progress this way. Everyone believes his religion to be the ultimate religion. Nonetheless, the belief that is right for him is what will make him develop further. And so Deepak Bhai says that he's planting good seeds, but at the same time some bad seeds get planted too. He's doing business with good intentions, and yet sometimes he does plants bad seeds by doing wrong business. So this is in the relative, there is all Dharma, right religion, wrong religion, is a mixture. There is no pure religion in relative religion. From And that is the only path left for the people of the world. But for those who attain the self in the Gnanvidhi, then of course he moves forward in a totally different. But as he experiences that, then he gets another link in life. And this is what is happening in life after life, and he moves forward. But if he attains the self, reine sile, then his work is done. Next subheading: for moksha one needs vitarag dharma. There is endless gnan, knowledge, but there is no other knowledge beyond G capital Gnan, the knowledge that the vitarags have mastered. Vitarag is he who does not lose anywhere. At times the body may lose, the mind may lose, the speech may lose, but not the vitarag. He will not lose. The vitarag lords were very wise. Their religion is based on siddhant, incontrovertible principles that lead to the self. And that is why it gives you cash fruit, instant results. It gives the cash fruit of moksha. The Lord, that is the giver of moksha, the Vitrag Lord that is within you, is impartial, nishpakshpati. The Vitrag religion is a religion that is 360 degrees. It is complete religion. Real religion, complete religion is impartial. It is not wrong to be biased. Bias will keep you within that standard, and to be impartial is to be out of standard. This akram is a science and is not a religion. The Hindu religion, Jain religion, Christian religion, etc. are all religions. That is only one science, but religions are many. There is only one science, but religions only. Deepak Bhai, that knowledge with the Vitarags attained, that is whatever mental difficulties arise, whatever deep depression arises, but despite that the Vitarags remain absolutely unattached and separate from it all. It's just like a piece of huge block of ice. No matter how much fire you touches it, it doesn't touch it. Nothing of the relative can puzzle you, touch you, or hurt you, or harm you, or make you suffer. That is the kind of Gnan the Vitarags remained in, and that is how they proceeded further. This mind, speech, and body may become completely exhausted, yet the state of the self is such that nothing can touch you. Even at the time of death, nothing of the death evidence touches you, the awakened one, the Y capital one, the S capital one. There is no pain, there is no suffering, there is no beggarliness, there is no beggary, there is no depression at the time of death. And that is this religion of the Siddhant. H2 plus O is equal to the Siddhantic Dharma. Siddhant means the incontrovertible principle that leads to the ultimate. And the knowledge is such that 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen will make water, and that is the elemental science. And by looking at the elemental nature of things, one becomes free. And so this is the scientific way, whereas religion is to clear up the dirt from the water. The dirty water versus the clean water that is religion. Whereas, as I said, the Gnani Purush Dadashri says that we do not have a slightest tension or fear or pain through this knowledge. And this is nishpakshpati. Nishpakshpati means no, as long as you take any kind of side, any kind of partiality, that is the stage of development. But ultimately you become out of standard, where you are neither this way or neither this way. You're not inclined in this way so every viewpoint is by degrees. Whereas but here we rise higher than dharma and adharma, which is higher than religion and irreligiosity. And so this is all coming down the line. The science is science. Whoever has attained the science, the Vignan, and has experienced it, then everyone will have the same experience. Whereas the experience of religion is separate. It is on the basis of doership and then kriya, activities of mind, speech, and body, and therefore they are all sitting in myriads and multitudes of their own levels of experience, and therefore everyone's experience is different. Whereas the religion of the S capital self, the science of the absolute self, is such that it is the same for everyone who attains it, and The other one is the viewpoint of from different degrees, whereas this is beyond degrees. This is the viewpoint of the center, and therefore it is the same for everyone, and it is of the same nature only. Limits of relative religion is the heading. The religions of the world are relative religions which help in relative things. They help towards bringing you towards the real. Questioner: Dada, what is the limitation of the relative religion that you talk about? Dadashri, whatever you can experience or happens through the five senses is within the limits of the relative. Questioner, on page 133. Does the relative have any connection with the real? Dadashri says there is a connection. It is because of the real that the relative came about. Relative came about as a result of the association with the real. It is a phase that has arisen, and this phase is temporary. Next page. Questioner, as long as, page 134, as long as one has not attained the real, is there a need for the relative? Dadashri, until one attains the real, everything is relative. After attaining the real, the relative separates. Next, this is actually one of the pearl of the Siddhant. Understand the word Siddhant. Siddhant is the incontrovertible principle that leads to the ultimate. Just as there is the sun, the moon, the stars and the earth. In the same way, and just in the same way, there are the eternal elements as they revolve in front of each other. From the relative viewpoint, you can see so many different phases of these relative situations in the universe, whereas and the relative situations are temporary, whereas the eternal elements are eternal and indestructible. So there are two eternal elements, the S capital self and matter, the physical complex. When they come in front, and in here in the science of Akram Vignan, there are 6 eternal elements. There is the self is the eternal element, then there is the matter, then there is the space, the inertia, the time, and the motion. So all of these eternal elements, when they come and move across in front of each other, one believes I am Uwe, I am Katya, I am Gata, and this is happening to me, that I am a wife, I am a lover, I am a husband, I am a father, etc. So these constantly changing situations are happening, whereas the eternal elements never change. So, but it is the proximation, it is the coming together of these things. But it's the biggest difficulty and the biggest error and the mistake is to believe the relative, that I am this relative. So, because the scientific circumstantial evidence is the doer of the relative, not you. And so the real is the knower and the seer, and therefore, so the real and relative, if you can keep it separate, this is the ultimate line of demarcation that is attained in the Gnan Vidhi of the Gnani Purush Dadashri. And if you can really keep it separate in exactness, then, and if you can see the relative as it is, then you can become established in the real. But until you attain the S capital relative S capital real self, then you continue to become I am the man, I am a carpenter, I am a doctor, I am a husband, I am a wife, I am a lover, I am a friend, I am a shopkeeper, etc. So, but when the moment Ich bin reine Seele, I am pure soul begins, Vishuddhatma chu, then everything becomes relative and it becomes separate forever. And we call it file number 1, and that has to be settled with equanimity. And it is under the influence of Vyavasthit. And so Dada has given this magnificent science and opened it for us all and has told us to just kind of settle it with equanimity and made us free in that manner. Next one, the thermometer of real religion. Dadashri, Dadashri, what do you do nowadays? Questioner, I am studying Srimad Rajchandra's books and religion. Dadashri, merely reading books will not do anything. You will have to be free of all kashais, anger, pride, deceit, greed. Will you feel hurt? Would you feel hurt if you were to hear someone say, Uwe has no sense? Would that affect you? Yes. Dadashri, it means that those words have hurt you. As long as words hurt you, realize that you have not attained religion at all. It is all right to be hurt from a rock. You can treat that wound. But wound from words is not a fruit of religion, real religion. The fruit of real religion is such that you will not be hurt by words. should you not have something that will show you how much your fever has gone up or down? Deepak bhai, you see, the stone is hitting the body, whereas words hit the ego. And so then there is so much suffering within. Oh, he told me this and she told me this. But as long as the ego gets hurt by the words of stone, then one is still has not really attained the experience of the capital self, the eternal self. Because it's so it is possible to attain the absolute harmony and bliss within the world of kashais, anger, greed, deceit, pride, and we have attained much more than religion. We have attained Vignan, the S capital self. We have attained the vision that tells us who is this person who is hurting me, who is this person who is saying this thing, who is the one who is getting hurt, and as long as the insults appears bitter to you, that means that means Artha Dhyan is happening, adverse internal meditation is happening, and therefore you have to and dharma means religion means that which does not allow Artha or Ardha Dhyan to happen. And for what happens to all of us is that in discharge it may happen because we have attained the S capital self from the middle, but later on the awareness arises that this was wrong. But in the initial phase we might have a reactive and an attacking response from within, but there is an immediate underlying understanding of the awakened self, which is the awakened awareness, which which enters you into the mode of inner penance, and therefore you do not find the other person at fault, and slowly through the inner fire of penance the ego will melt, and the agnas of the Lord, the agna of the Vitrag Lord, our Gnani Purush will make you remain in bliss, and Uve will remain in Dharma Dhyan, which is the real religion, which is relative religion, which is free from Artha and Raudra Dhyan, which is adverse internal meditation reactions. So, and so whether you reach any Jain Shastra, Jain scripture, or Krupadudev Srimad Rajchandra, the Gnani, 125 years ago, Kramik path of Gnani, well, it's that you have to read that with this, you have to read it with this kind of awareness, internal awareness, if you are a Mahatma of Gnani Purush Dadashri. The whole goal should be that I want to become free from the kashais and remain equanimous in my state of the self. We can take the samayik of this thing. In other words, I cannot even get rid of my illusory attachment towards my mother's sister. And so we need to really attain, that is a samayik topic, Masi Uparnopan Moh Utarto Nathi, that is the one, and the other one is, because so our Mahatmas, when Mahatmas lose a little money, they do not get very upset, but they really get upset when they get insulted or when they feel slighted, or their sense of the self gets slighted, when their pride gets hurt. In this Dadashri's book, in this 300-page book of Dadashri, there are 100 pages where there are keys of how to remain firm against insult. So if you can break, there is so much knowledge that Dada has exposed of how to become free from man, pride, and if we can, in this at least 300 pages are devoted to how to break the sense of pride and the sense of disrespect that arises when somebody insults you. That is what we really need to this. That is what we need to come. That is the Purusharth that we need to enter into. No matter how much Uve or Nada or Shuddha gets insulted, the discharge ego may get insulted and may get hurt, but we have now the medicine of how to see the other person as the flawless one, how to do the analysis, how to do the pratikraman, how to arrive at a resolution. This is what we can attain this from this speech of the Gnani Purush, this Aptavani of Dadashri, and become extremely energized. And And so if you can remain unaffected, that means you have attained the experience of the self. And so Aptavani 9, Aptavani 1, Aptavani 2, there is Dada has talked about man, pride and lobe, greed, and how to become free from this. We just need to fit it. Now the next heading is the main intent in the path of moksha. There are three things required for moksha. Number one, an intense desire to attain the self, page 134. Number two, an intense desire to meet a Gnani Purush. And number three, an intent, the inner intent of meeting a Gnani Purush until you meet him, H capital. Now, first you have to have an inner intent of meeting a Gnani Purush. Once you meet him, you will receive the benefits. This is the only main path. The rest is all Vyavahar Dharma, religion of worldly interactions. If there is any real religion, Nishchay, in the relative religion, then it is these three sentences. You will find the solution if you understand just three. This is magnificent, says Deepak Bhai. If we can just understand just this much, this is the essence of the step-by-step path. This is what Srimad Rajchandra Kripadev used to say. And he says, if you can just hang on to these three things without letting go. But we have attained much more than these three things. We have attained the self through the grace of the Gnani. Now we have to move towards the clear and the distinct experience, Spashta Vedan, of the self, Atma. And we attain that by remaining in the Agna of the Gnani Purush and in the crowds of Satsang of Gnani Purush. And so, but regardless of the nature of your religion, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu, if you can hang on to this particular essence of the threefold messages, then let me attain. This is the greatest thing. I want to attain Atmagnan, and I want to attain the self. I want to meet the Gnani Purush, and I want to have the inner intent to meet it. This is what prepares your underlying foundation to receive the Gnani Purush. But for you will need a living lamp of the Gnani Purush. I bow down with utmost reverence to the real form of every embodied soul of this universe. Real form of God is God's form, and therefore I worship the whole world in the form of God. If you understand just this sentence, even then you are considered to have attained religion. All these are relative religions. Relative religion means that they give you worldly happiness by removing all the worldly pains. They do not give you moksha. Relative means a viewpoint. There are millions of people in each viewpoint. If you can see the self and the Irina Sile, the pure soul, the Shuddh Atma in every living being. Bhagavad Swarup means somebody steals, he is in his religion of stealing. The one who is giving donation is in the religion of giving donation. He has the knowledge that his knowledge is that it is good to steal, but he's got ignorance, and his ignorant knowledge is relative religion is that it is okay to steal because everybody else is stealing. But if you hurt him, then you are hurting the pure soul within that. If you hurt the thief, then you are hurting the pure soul within it. And but as he moves forward, then he will get the knowledge of donations and charity, and therefore he'll become a charitable person. And so that is also that knowledge that he receives is also the knowledge of the self that is coming out from within himself. But it is all relative knowledge only that is expressing within him. But it was because of the presence of the real and the eternal within him that he has got the relative knowledge of stealing or giving donations. But eternally he is the God within one. He may be, he said the man who has drunk and says, I'm a king. But we know that he's a man only. But as soon as the alcohol goes down, then he will become a man. He is a human being. In the same way, these are all these human beings who are doing wrong things in the world. They are actually the gods who are mistaken, who do not have the right vision, who have become who have gone on the wrong path, who are covered by ignorance of the self, who have not have the light of the self within. So you should have the constant inner awareness that they are Shrinat Sile, pure souls, and the light will express sooner or later. Next question. Question from Aptaputra Ketan. Supposing, so if one has the desire to receive the Gnan, then he will meet the Gnani, right? No. Just by listening to the instruction number 1 only, he tries to find it in scriptures, and that is where he gets stuck. That is why Srimad Rajchandra said that Krupa Sajivan Murtina Lakshmina je kai પણ કરવામાં આવે છે તે જીવને બંધન છે. In other words, until you meet a living embodiment of a liberated one, fully liberated one, a Gnani Purush, all seeking is useless. And so that means if you go to any ordinary spiritual master, he'll stroke your back, he will stroke your pride, he'll stroke your greed, he might stroke your sexuality, and so you will not really attain what it is really like to really meet the one who is the liberated one, and you will not attain the self. So all 3 components of this on page 133 are very critical. This is a very thing. It is so. And desire item number 1 is in self is not one, and you cannot. He says I want a. When you say I want a diamond, but you cannot find a diamond everywhere. For a diamond, you will have to go to a true jeweler, and for a good diamond, you will have to go to the one who is an expert jeweler, so that otherwise you might end up with zirconias, cubic zirconias. And so this 1 and 2 and 3, all 3 are very, very important. And then there is the first letter is that Ichharai, there is an intent, and then there is an intent. In ignorance, there is always the intent as well as the desire. When you are not self-realized, the Ichha and Bhavna are saying the same. But when you why is there a splitting in the Gujarati on the page on 1 and 2, line 1 and 2 of page 134 of Ichha and Bhavna, desire and intention. And so Bhavna is intentions, and number 3 is let me attain a Gnani, says Deepak Bhai. Those are just things. And this is in the entire relative religion, this much is the only real religion. This is such a critical statement at the bottom paragraph of page 134. Nishchay Dharma. This is in these 3 sentences, Dada has given us the Nishchay Dharma, the religion that leads to this S capital self. If these 3 intentions are enforced, then only through those intentions he will attain, he'll get to meet Gnani Purush. Next question on page 1 is he has not received, because when one attains the Gnani Purush, because one has never heard Vitrag Gnan, never met the Gnani Purush, that only happens one. This is Vitrag Gnan. So the Vitrag Gnan cannot be attained without meeting the Vitragi Purush. Yes. Even in the scriptures, there is a lot of Vitrag Gnan. But if that is not really received through the meeting with a Gnani Purush, the same scriptures read in the presence of a Gnani Purush attains the pratyaksh, the living meeting is very important. Vitragi means there is a vairag. There are 3 shabda. There is moha. There is the moh of the sansar. That means that is called rag. There is illusion towards then there is vairag. Vairag means he wants to know the S capital self, but he also likes the S small self and the worldly self also. And the Vitrag means he likes the S capital only, and he does not have any value in the relative at all. Whatever there is, it is just fine only. He does not have any real interest in the relative life at all. But people kind of use Vitrag kind of very loosely. Vitrag means he is constantly in the S capital, with every breath, with every movement, with every motion, with every second, with every vision, with every movement, with every every activity of the body, he is only into the S capital self only. He is only, he has, and to have, and prashast moh, which is deep intensive, but is, and he has prashast moh. In other words, that is the illusory attachment towards the, it is the deep attachment towards the Gnani only. Who am I is the Gnani. I am. Okay, so the next question is, so relative knowledge will make you helpless sooner or later. Alexander the Great and all great emperors have come and gone because they had all the knowledge of the emperors of the relative world will ultimately make you helpless, whereas the knowledge of the self will make you the emperor of the universe of the self and also the emperor of the self, and will never make you weak or beggarly or helpless. And that is the Vitaragi Gnan, because that's so. So if you have the knowledge of engineering, then you see you would, you are at the, you will become an engineer, and then you have to run around and an engineer to between different factories, or if you're a doctor, you'll have to run in between patients, etc. The self is the abode of infinite knowledge. So nothing is hidden from the self as capital, is there? It is true. But there are two types of knowledge. The relative knowledge, but one can get some kind of happiness in relative knowledge, but he will become dependent, whereas the real knowledge will make him absolutely free, and he will be experiencing bliss as well. But you see, in the relative knowledge, they will teach you how to do all kinds of yogas and ashtanga yogas and hatha yogas and the various asanas. But one day, if you develop a slip disc or if you have had an accident and your muscles get sore, will you be able to do those asanas? So the relative knowledge will make you parvash, will make you dependent. All the pleasures of sexuality, pride and money and fame, etc. Big engineer, big doctor, big businessman, but ultimately they all lead to dependency and helplessness, whereas Vitaragnan makes you independent and absolutely niralamb. Yes, the ego will become very helpless in those. But when you say you are the sufferer and I am simply the knower, the blissful knower of who you are, the relative knowledge is dependent. If one evidence is lacking, supposing you're ready for wedding, but if the priest does not arrive, or if the priest does not arrive to conduct the ceremony, will you be able to get married? So the entire wedding ceremony will go aside. So or if the bride becomes sick or she has a severe headache, will she be able to attend the wedding? So you see, so all relative things, regardless of what may be the changing in the relative evidences, relative sanjogs, relative circumstances, nimitz, etc., nothing will change in Gnan. So ultimately the five agnas are the thing. Yes, five agnas is the protection that lets you remain as the S capital self, and so in the Kramic path everything is relative. In the Kramic path, you see, ultimately he may have cleared off 90% of these negativities and the kashais, and so in the last life he gets this Gnan of the self, and therefore he becomes enlightened at the end. Whereas, but here the five agnas are the cushions, are the pair of tongs, are the long pieces with which you touch the coals, in the hot coals in the fire, so that you will not get burnt. In the fire of life you use the five agnas, the prongs, the long chipias, the long forks, so that you can fork it out and touch it and stir it up without getting burnt. Next one. And it's when in other words, the awakened self is the one who never gets tired. That means it is the awakened self is the one that never gets tired. The one who has got the conviction that Ich bin reiner Seele is the one who does not. That's the awakened. I never get defeated. The pure soul is the awakened awareness, isn't it? The one who says, I am pure soul, Vishnu Ranasali, is the one who is the one. Dada Bhagwan is the fully, is the 360 degree one, the fully. And the one who has become awakened in the Gnanvidhi, he says, I am the awakened one. I am the one, the Ishbindrayana Sile, that I have such. I am such that nothing can help me. It is the relative one who says that I get tired. It is the relative one who says that I am defeated. The more sublimated in the relative you become, in the relative role, that means if you become absolutely defeated in the relative, if you say I'm lost, I don't want to win anything in the relative, then will you not have become won everything? Isn't that the ego? If you want to use that as the ego, but it's not the ego really, it's actually the one who has attained the S capital self, the one who is to believe I'm Uve, but now he believes I am the awakened one, I am pure soul. The one who says I used to be Katya now says I am Ishbindrayana Sile. The one who says I used to be Marika now says I Ishbindrayana Sile. And so this is okay. This is the Nishyatma, isn't it? Yes, this is Nishyatma and Vyatma. You see, the Vyavahar Atma, the worldly intellecting self now has become the Gnani. He is a mini Gnani. You can use the word mini Gnani if you want to. But he has not become the full Gnani like Gnani Purush Dadashri. Now, next comes the stages of the self. We are reading on page 134. Okay, now, stages of the self. It's a question. Sanjay is asking now, this out of these things, it is through the relative has risen because of the proximity to the real. The belief was I am the husband, I am the father, I am the lover, etc. When I am the passenger, it is the train that came in front of you, and therefore you became the passenger. But you see, the real one within is the original one with a constantly changing role. The wrong beliefs continue to arise. Really, the relative world is in the past life. He had made the intentions that I wanted to go to Munich from Berlin, and therefore the train comes in front of him in this life. And so then, when the train comes, he says, "Oh, I'm Katya. I'm the passenger. I'm going from Berlin to Munich. I'm the passenger." But if you just say that it is Katya is the passenger, I am not the passenger. Katya is traveling in the train. Why is the real? Why is the real and relative? There is real. There is the relative, real, and absolute, which is the most. There are the relative, real, and absolute, which is the highest. Absolute is the highest. And then, what is inferior to the real? The real. Then is real, and then below that is relative. Okay, where did you get this from? Relative, real, and absolute. Where did you get this from? Where did you learn this from? On the head. Okay, is absolute an adjective, or is it without adjective? It is absolute is without any adjective. Who can be called an absolute? The original one is the absolute. Who can we call the absolute? Who can we call an absolute? The original self is the real. The absolute, more than the absolute is the real only. Real is the eternal one. Where is the real now? The real is now in the relative, and therefore it becomes a relative. So then there is relative, there is relative, and then there is relative, then there is real relative, and then there is the real. Then there is absolute real. Then how long is the absolute? How long is the absolute? Then when he becomes absolute nirvana, when he attains the nirvana, then he becomes the real again. Absolute is an adjective. That which was that knowledge which was an ignorance, it is called the theory of relative. I am this, I am that, etc. When you are in the state of relative existence, I am a husband, I am a father, etc., that is called relative. That is a theory of relativity. I am nada is theory, and it is meant. That means he is a mood atma, and then it becomes the antaratma. Then he comes into the theory of reality that I am a pure soul, Ishman, I am eternal, and then I am eternal, and then he has entered into the reality from the relative, and then the real viewpoint has begun from that which was essentially the relative viewpoint. Now. And so now he has moved towards the relative, and And when the relative becomes zero, then he becomes absolute. And so he never gets entrance into the relative only. He becomes absolute only. That is called the Niralambha Atma. The original S capital self is always there. But the one who had the wrong vision, his vision and his experience changes. And then, but when he becomes, and after absolute knowledge, Kevad Gnan, until he becomes nirvana, until final release, he is absolute. And then once he becomes the Siddha Gati in the final stage, then he becomes real again. So he attains the ultimate real. It's in the real only. There is no absolute there. It is real only. That is the Vignan Ghan Atma or the Param Atma. So as long as long as eating the food, he is absolute. And then if he stands up, then he is in the nirvana, the siddha state, then he is in the real only. And as long as he was in a relative plate eating, this was my own question with the Dada. Dada, what is the real, relative and absolute? Where did you bring the absolute? This was a question with Dadashri himself. I thought absolute was the highest. Yes. The self is without any adjectives, but when we give an adjective of absolute, absolute is an adjective. Are you an absolute? No. Yes, the Gnani Purush has got an adjective called absolute because he remains as the absolute. He never enters into the relative. But the original self within all, as capital, is real only, is beyond any adjectives at all. Okay, so the original self is not called absolute. It is the state of the original self that is called absolute. The original self within all is beyond any adjectives, and the adjective is visheshan, all absolute. We call, when we say absolute or relative or real, absolute or relative, that is actually it's an adjective, isn't it? Now here there is a lot of interactive conversation going on between Aptaputra Sanjay and Deepak Bhai and on the semantics of absolute versus the real. The original S capital within this entire universe is eternal, has never is absolutely unstained, is it not? It is the vibhavik, it is the wrong state. Because of the belief that I am Sanjay, it is belief that I am Uve, that you became Uve, and therefore life after life. And so then it becomes the one with the wrong belief, and then he becomes the interim government, I am pure soul, and then he becomes I am absolute soul, I mean pure soul only, absolute soul. And then but he still has the body, but when he gets released, he still has the yoga, the mind, speech and body. When the mind, spirit and body is not there in nirvana, then there is the real that is manifest, comes back. Let us just kind of see it this way. He says, I only got this from Dada's Vani only, Dada's book only in Aptavani, and it is coming again in Aptavani 14.2, relative. The original thing is real only, for eternally. And the relative relative arises due to situations and circumstances. Currently there is relative because there is relative. I am a passenger going from Berlin to Munich. And then but then there is an awareness within, so there is real relative. I am pure soul and Katya is traveling, and therefore there is real relative. And in the karmic path he remains in the relative and he is trying to get into the real. And so it is called real relative. In other words, this relative means I am Katya, I am passenger, I am traveling. That is relative. And then in the ignorant state he says I want to know the self. So from the relative you are seeking the real. So I am Katya, I want to know the pure soul, that is relative real. Then but for us in Akram Vignan it is real relative, that means I am pure soul and this is Katya, and this is the real relative. And this is we have the real relative. Like I said, we remain in the real and we settle the relative. And so real relative, we have the relative real. In other words, this four, Deepak Bhai has kind of said it the other way around, but it's a real relative. And then and then finally then comes real only, real it is absolute self, and then real is the final state of the siddhagati. That means you have, because to know the self is to if you are in the real and you want to know the soul, that is called mumukshata. It is the desire to know the self. You have not attained the Gnan Vidhi in Akram Vignan. You have not. Yeah, that is first. That is relative real. It's relative real. They remain in the relative, and so there is the real relative, then there is the real relative, then there, for us, then there is the real, and then there is the real only, the ultimate. And then he says there is a question about Swarup. What is the difference between real Swarup? That is the same thing. Swarup means the state of the self. Real is the original self, and Swarup is, he says, I am the original self, I am the eternal self. So that means you move away from any association and ideations of I am Nada, I am Jeff, I am Uwe, I am Gata, I am Agnes. So this is how you move. And so it is, you were always the real, but it was because of the pressures of the circumstances, the beliefs get changed. Nothing changes. It is like pressure on the eye. When there is pressure on, and so the belief changes, and therefore, and so until one becomes, then once he becomes absolute, then he becomes one with the original state of the self as capital, and he becomes Abhed. Is there another mic? Somebody is asking a question. So we are going to read about Dharma Adharma Atma. What would you like to say, please? Dada has said in so many. Dadashri has said that Dada has said that I am in the theorem of absolutism and theory of relativity. What is the difference between, we can come into, what is the difference between theory of relativity and the theorem of absolutism? If we know, when we, okay, the theory of when all of this that we understand right now is the theory of absolutism, and when we experience it, then we are in the theorem of absolutism. When we become the absolute self, then we are in the theorem of absolutism. Right now we are understanding the theory of absolutism, and that is the level of the experience. Is that absolutism? Is that both are together, theorem and theory? This is the gentleman from Dubai asking Mahatma, when the theory of absolutism begins, and is it Vignan Ganatma? So it's a theory of absolutism and theorem of absolutism. Because we Mahatmas are in the theory of reality yet. But there is one. But there will be a rare one who will see the absolutely independent state of the self. And that is the state, that is the beginning of the state of absolutism. And when it becomes and says, I am this only, then he becomes the theorem of absolutism. This is just words of Gnani Purush Dadashri. Now let us read stages of the self. That which pushes away adharma, lack of religion, any hurt to others, is dharma, religion. It is called dharma adharma. That is always dharma. There is always dharma where there is adharma. Religion or dharma has verily arisen to get rid of adharma. The soul has three states. Number one, dharma adharma atma. You see that, so that is when you, so when you steal something from somebody, then you are taught to give it back. Because if you are doing something bad, if you are telling a lie, then you say no, tell the truth, etc. And so to push you towards the negative, from the negative towards the positive, that which is hurtful towards that which is helpful. And this is the satya. And so the truth and lies, truth and untruth are both relative. And so in the relative one, there is always a mixture of the both. This is all relative, and that is called dharma adharma. Dharma is called shubha, auspicious, and adharma means inauspicious. And in the original self is The original self is that punya char, papachar, good deeds, bad deeds, good habits, good and bad things, relative. These are all relatives. These are the real is permanent, and that is who I am. This is one of the biggest. This is a very subtle, fine path of liberation. The world gives a lot of importance to the helpful, and if we do not, so the entire world gives importance to that which is auspicious. But Dada has given us a very great demarcation and differentiation. He has lifted you up from this doing good and helping others. He has, and it will bind merit karma for you, and it will make you come back again in a body. And it will, and if, but I'm not the doer of the good or the bad, then you will become free from the doership, the cause of it all, and therefore you will stop binding karma, and you will, this is a very major discovery of Gnani Purush Dadashri. But dharma, but again then for such a one, the self remains to be. There are three stages. There is dharma, that is number one, dharma atma, mudhatma, one who believes this is relative world is real, the one who is asleep without any awakened awareness, ajagrut in this world. Number two, gnan atma, antaratma, the one who has just awakened to the self, jagrut, interim state of the self, I am pure self. And this is number one. There's a theory of, because there's theory of relativity, theory of reality, and theory of absolutism. The theory of relativity. He knows that I am, but he does not know who am I. Everybody knows I am, but they do not know who am I. When they know who am I, then they come to the theory of reality, number two step, antaratma step. And that I am eternal one. And then towards the ultimate completion, then when then vastutva, that is number two is vastutva, astitva, vastutva, and purnatva. Number three, purnatva. And then that is what happened to Gnani Purush Dadashri, that is the Vignan Ganatma, the Param Atma, the absolute self. Theories of absolutism. Dada says the world is looking and searching for the theory of absolutism, and I am sitting here as the theorem of absolutism. I am the Vignan Ganatma, and I am sharing it with the world. Now there is the word Siddhant, that is the Gnan Ganatma. When can it be called a Siddhant, incontrovertible principle that accomplishes the ultimate the self? When one progresses from the state of the dharma, the duality of relative religion, and attains the grace of the Gnani Purush, and then he comes to the state of Gnan Gan Atma, the self. Atma is Gnan Gan, knowledge only, and it is eternal. Gnan Gan means when one knows what is real, what the self, and what is relative, the non-self, what is permanent and what is temporary. Such a one comes into the theory of reality and attains moksha. His work is done. He comes into the theory of reality. Before that, Siddhant, on page 136, the science of Atma and Paramatma is called Siddhant. Siddhant means the science of the self and the absolute self is called Siddhant. That means that leads to the absolute self only, Atma Paramatma. What is real? What is reality? What is real? And when one is absolutely devoted to the real only, then he has attained the Siddhant, the incontrovertible principle that attains the self. When he comes into the absolute self, then he has attained the absolute Siddhant. The greatest thing that helps Siddhant, that is the Gnan only. Number one. And number two, that helps the Siddhant, it is Brahmacharya. Number one is the Gnan. As long as one believes that there is any pleasure in sexuality, then one will not attain the ultimate incontrovertible principle that accomplishes the S capital self. So of course Gnan is helpful, but the next biggest thing that helps attain the Siddhant, it is Brahmacharya. Yes, without the real, the relative does not arise. So let us gather the priceless pearls of Siddhant. So no matter what happens to you, anyone, no matter it is Siddhantic. The words of the one who speaks. That means what is real. It's a Siddhant means he will have the continuous and the constant line of demarcation in terms of what is what is real and what is relative, and make him keep this. And this is what will help us. No matter the worst thing may have happened through Uve or through Nada or through Shuddha, but or the best thing may have happened through Uve or Nada or Shuddha, but they the most auspicious or the more inauspicious thing that may happen, but I am not the one who did it, and that is the vision, and to remain in that experience, and that is called the attainment of the Siddhant, and that is what we need to attain and experience in this very life, and that is the pearls. Those are the pearls that we are collecting in this life. I want to understand Siddhant some more. I should. Okay, so yes, with the moment he begins following the five agnas, the Siddhant has begun, says Deepak Bhai. It has begun in his understanding, but when it comes into his experience, then he has attained it. He has understood the roadmap, but he knows how to reach Munich, but he has not quite reached Munich from Berlin yet, and he is on his way, and so. And as he starts traveling on the road from Berlin to Munich, then he has attained the Siddhant. There are two. Once you have to take this Gnan, and then you have to keep on hearing these things again and again, so that then our Siddhant, until the ultimate experience of the self will arise. And there's some interference here. And somebody's crying. Yes, so it looks like something happened among the ladies, which is a distraction. Yes, so don't worry about it. So there is not, if your worldly clothes get stained, there is nothing to be worried about. Forget it. Let us proceed. Okay. There are 2 weeks. One. The Dada said, take this Gnan and then keep on listening to this Gnan again and again and again and again. Complete this Siddhant. And our Purusharth is to complete our Siddhant. Having attained the eternal self, we need to know, then we need to understand the Siddhant and to attain the Siddhant. And until you attain the clear and distinct experience of the self, you have not attained the Siddhant. But the book says it has begun. Has it not begun? It has begun. The train from Berlin to Munich has begun, has it not? Yes. And in many aspects he gets experiences of this too. And in many other aspects he does not get the experience. And that is where there is a weakness. But by degree the experiences are increasing, are they not? But he has gone there by 20. He has certainly left Berlin and he has not reached Munich yet. The relative is being dispelled, the relative is being let go, and the real is being attained. And therefore he has got some inner understanding, some incontrovertible principle that accomplishes the ultimate, that he has attained, that is going. And so then he will come towards the theorem and the theory of absolutism. So now this is a 1971 talk, says Deepak Bhai. Niruma used to say, Niruma used to say that by following Brahmacharya, Siddhant will come into your hand. You will attain the Siddhant. Siddhant, that is the ultimate end. And then I was very curious, what is Siddhant? What is Siddhant? And so, so I used to kind of just dance holding her fingers, and now, but I knew that this was one of the greatest things. And until the ultimate clear and distinct experience of the self, the Siddhant continues. And so let us go to the next page now. His work attains. Next question. Will you please explain more? I want to experience the principle. You said Brahmacharya is very important. Will you please explain the role of Brahmacharya here? Deepak Bhai says it is helpful. How? What kind of understanding should we place? To attain the whenever any pleasure is derived from the relative, there is the obstruction towards the real, is it not? When you let go of the relative pleasures, then also one can become free from sexuality through ego. in this charge, because by giving importance to the ego that I will never have sex, I am a brahmacharya boy, I am a brahmachari, aptaputra, etc. Brahmacharya is very helpful. It will cut away 85% of the rust, not 100% of the rust, but 85% of the rust will be removed. How will he know that? And he says, in other words, how will you know that he has devalued that which is temporary, and he has known the eternal, and therefore he only values the eternal? How will you know that this is useless and temporary and not going to last long? That means you lose your interest in it. If you've been given as something that is now worthless, useless, will you not know that it is worthless? And so your value and your importance and your attention towards it will go away. If you got a junk car, will you value it as much as your new red Porsche? And so it depends upon where you place the values in terms of. So now you should know that the most valuable thing in this life is the self, Atma, and that is the thing. And then that is the awareness, that is the perpetual awareness that this my presence, who am I? And now this has happened to us. Now we are just we have attained it. Now we have to know what we have become. We have all become that, you see. And so somebody is 500 away, but somebody is 500 miles from Munich, somebody is 200 miles from Munich, somebody is 10 miles from Munich. So this is now, I think, the end of the first session here, my friends, of the morning session of the Parayan on Aptavani 4, chapter 15. We have been reading up to pages 131 to 130, top of 136 of Aptavani 4 in the PDF, English PDF. After a little break, we will resume the Parayan session 2. Jai Satchidanand. Thank you very much. Jai Satchidanand. Vishuddhatma Bhagavan. Jai Satchidanand.